The sky tore open above Mordian Prime, a wound in reality that bled crimson light across the ash-grey battlefields. Imperial guardsmen looked up from their trenches, las guns trembling in white-knuckled grips as something fell from the impossible breach. Not the expected demonic hordes or tainted soldiers of the archenemy, but a single humanoid figure wreathed in golden flame that outshone the system's dying sun. Commissar Thardad raised his magnolars, focusing on the descending anomaly. "Prepare to fire on my command," he growled, but the order died in his throat as the figure slammed into the no-man's land between Imperial and Heretic lines, with such force that tanks were flipped, infantry thrown from their feet, and a perfect crater half a kilometre wide appeared where there had once been a killing field. Silence claimed the battlefield for 3 full heartbeats before the dust cleared, revealing a man standing calmly at the centre of destruction. He wore strange orange garments marked with unfamiliar sigils, his black hair defying both gravity and reason. Most striking was his expression, an innocent confusion utterly alien to a world where confusion meant death and innocence had never existed. Where am I? The question carried across the battlefield with unnatural clarity, bypassing vox systems and helmet filters to reach every ear. His voice lacked the distortion of warpcraft, yet resonated with power that made psychers double over in agony. This doesn't look like Earth. The Mian 84th, trained to respond to any threat with immediate violence, opened fire. 10,000 las gun beams converged on the stranger. A furious storm of red light that should have reduced even a space marine to vapor and memory. The man vanished, not disintegrated, not moved, but simply ceased to be where the las guns targeted. He reappeared beside Commissar Thad, examining the officer's bolt pistol with childlike curiosity. "That wasn't very nice," he said, smiling despite his words. "I'm Goku. Do you know where I am? And why is everyone fighting?" They drew his chainsaw in a fluid motion born of decades of war, its adamantine teeth screaming for blood as he swung at the intruder's neck. The blade stopped against 2 fingers, caught as easily as a child might catch a falling leaf. "You shouldn't play with such dangerous things," Goku said, taking the weapon and bending its molecular-forged blade into a useless spiral with no more effort than a normal man might use to crumple parchment. Someone could get hurt. Panic spread through the Imperial lines, an emotion so rare among the fatalistic Morian Guard that many officers failed to recognize it. Veteran soldiers who had faced demons without flinching threw down their weapons and fled. Others fired wildly, hitting their own comrades in their desperation to eliminate the impossible threat. Across the battlefield, cultists of the ruinous powers fell to their knees, recognizing power beyond their comprehension. "The Avatar comes," they chanted, voices forming a dissonant chorus. "The gods have sent their champion." High above in orbit, aboard the strike cruiser Emperor's Vengeance, Librarian Cassius of the Ultramarines clutched his head as psychic feedback threatened to overwhelm his wards. "Captain," he gasped, blood flowing freely from his nose and eyes. "Something has arrived on Mordian Prime, something beyond classification." Captain Amon turned from the tactical display, his weathered face betraying nothing of the concern he felt at seeing a First Company librarian reduced to such a state. "Xenos? No," Cassius managed, fighting to remain conscious. "It registers as human, yet radiates energy patterns I cannot comprehend. Not warp energy, not psychic manifestation, something other. The machine spirit of the OPEX refuses to quantify its power level. Prepare for immediate deployment," Amon ordered, turning to his command squad. "First Company will make planetfall and assess this anomaly. If it threatens Imperial sovereignty, we will terminate it." Within the hour, 3 Thunderhawk gunships pierced Mordian's atmosphere, carrying 40 Terminators of the Ultramarines' First Company, the finest warriors humanity could field. They deployed in perfect tactical formation, teleport homers guiding them to materialize in a perfect circle around the stranger who had thrown the war-torn world into confusion. Goku stood amid the aftermath of slaughter, not of his making, but of panic and friendly fire. He had tried to stop the violence, moving faster than mortal eyes could track to push aside lasguns and disarm the most aggressive soldiers. But thousands had died in the chaos his arrival sparked. Now he looked upon the massive armoured figures with their stormbolters and power fists, sensing the lethal intent radiating from them like heat from a sun. "Are you in charge here?" he asked, addressing Captain Amon directly, somehow knowing which warrior led despite the identical armour. "I need to figure out where I am and how to get home. Also, Why is everyone trying to kill each other and me? Aemon's helmet vox amplified his voice to thunderous proportions. In the name of the God Emperor of mankind, identify yourself, creature. I'm Goku, came the simple reply, accompanied by a gulless smile that seemed more insult than greeting to the grim artis. I'm a sand from Earth, though I don't think this is my Earth. The sky's the wrong colour, and nobody back home wears armour like yours. You will submit to Imperial authority and accompany us for examination, Arjuman declared, his storm bolter never wavering from its target. Resist and you will be destroyed. Goku scratched his head, a gesture so mundane it seemed obscene on this battlefield of horror and death. I don't want to fight you guys, but I'm not going anywhere to be examined either. Last time someone wanted to do that, it didn't end well for them. Then you choose destruction. Aemon's voice was cold. First company, execute the anomaly. 40 storm bolters fired simultaneously, each weapon unleashing a torrent of mass-reactive shells designed to enter a target before detonating. The air became solid with projectiles, each capable of destroying a light vehicle. At such range, with such concentration of fire, nothing could survive. The shells never reached their target. Goku stood with his palm extended, a sphere of energy surrounding him that the bolter shells could not penetrate. They hung suspended in the air, motionless, caught in an invisible field that defied the physics of the material universe. I said, I don't want to fight, Goku repeated, his voice hardening slightly, but I won't let you hurt me either. Can we talk instead? The anomaly employs some form of kinetic barrier. Librarian Cassius voxed to his brothers, psychic energy crackling around his force staff. I will attempt to breach it with the Emperor's will. Blue lightning erupted from the librarian's outstretched hand, a focused beam of psychic energy that would have reduced a demon prince to ashes. It struck Goku's barrier and shattered, fragmenting into 1,000 glittering shards that dissipated like morning mist. That tickled, Goku said, genuine surprise in his voice. Are you using some kind of key technique? It feels different from what I'm used to. Arjuman had seen enough. Terminators close to melee range, power fists and thunder hammers. We will destroy this abomination in the name of the Emperor. The Terminators advanced with surprising speed for beings encased in such massive armour, their footfalls shaking the ground. Goku watched them come with curiosity rather than fear, his barrier dissolving as he shifted stance subtly. The first Terminator swung a thunder hammer, a weapon that could collapse the side of a tank with a glancing blow. Goku caught it one-handed, the weapon's disruption field flaring as it encountered an energy it could not disperse. These are really well made, Goku observed, examining the hammer even as he held back the Terminator's augmented strength without apparent effort. But you're relying too much on your weapons and not enough on yourselves. In a blur of motion too fast for even Art's auto-senses to track, Goku disarmed 5 Terminators, placing their weapons carefully on the ground rather than destroying them. When the Space Marines resorted to their power fists, he evaded each blow with minimal movement, his body shifting just enough to make the attacks miss by millimeters. You guys are pretty good, he said, respect evident in his voice, but you're too rigid, too predictable. You need to feel the flow of battle. Blasphemy, snarled a Terminator, launching a haymaker that would have decapitated a normal human. The Codex Astartes guides our every move. Its wisdom is perfection. Goku caught the fist, holding it immobile despite the Terminator's straining servo muscles. No technique is perfect, he said softly. That's why we keep training, keep growing. The moment you think you've reached perfection is the moment you stop improving. With gentle pressure, he pushed the Terminator back, sending the multi-tonen warrior sliding across the dirt without damaging his ancient armor. The other Ultramarines pressed their attack, disciplined and coordinated, but found themselves striking empty air as their target moved with impossible speed. Enough games, Captain Aemon growled, signaling a tactical withdrawal. Librarian Cassius, request orbital bombardment. This creature is beyond our conventional means. Goku's expression changed, hardening into something older and more serious than his previous demeanor suggested possible. Orbital bombardment. You'd destroy this whole area just to get rid of me. There are still people alive down there in those trenches. Acceptable losses, Aemon replied without hesitation. The threat you represent outweighs their lives 1,000-fold. Something shifted in the air. A pressure building that had nothing to do with bombardment preparation and everything to do with the stranger's changing demeanor. The ground began to tremble, not from weapons fire, but from energy gathering around Goku's form. "I won't let you sacrifice innocent people," he said, his voice dropping an octave as golden light began to shimmer around him. "I tried to be patient. I tried to talk. But if you're willing to kill your own people just to get to me, then you leave me no choice." The light around him exploded outward, a golden inferno that engulfed his form. His hair shifted, standing more rigidly upright and transforming to match the golden aura that now surrounded him. Most shocking to the Space Marines was the change in his presence, the palpable wave of power that rolled across the battlefield like the bow shock of a battleship entering atmosphere. "This is what we Scions call a Super Saiyan," Goku explained, his voice echoing strangely as if coming from everywhere at once. "I don't like using it against people who aren't on my level, but you're not giving me much choice." Librarian Cases fell to his knees, blood pouring from his eyes and ears as his psychic senses were overwhelmed. "Captain," he gasped. "Whatever it is, it has breached the librarious wards. I can feel it in my mind, but it is not using the warp. It is as if it exists partially in the materium and partially in some other realm we have no name for." Before Eamon could respond, Goku vanished from sight. The captain's enhanced reflexes allowed him to register a golden blur moving through his formation, but not quickly enough to react. One by one, his terminators collapsed, armor intact, but occupants unconscious from precision, strikes that somehow bypassed their ceramite protection to target pressure points even Art's physiology could not defend against. In seconds, 38 of the 40 Terminators lay incapacitated but alive on the blasted ground. Only Aim Man and the crippled Cassius remained standing. "I disabled them without causing permanent damage," Goku said, the golden aura fading as he returned to his base form. "They'll wake up in a few hours with headaches, but otherwise fine. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to understand where I am and find a way home." Aim Man's bolter came up in a swift arc, but before he could fire, it was gone from his grip. Goku stood 10 paces away, examining the weapon with detached curiosity. "The craftsmanship on these is incredible," he said, running a finger along the weapon's blessed housing. "You've carved prayers into the metal. Is this a religious thing for you guys? Surrender the holy weapon." "Abomination!" Eamon demanded, drawing his power sword. "Its machine spirit is not for your corrupt touch." "Machine spirit?" Goku looked more closely at the bolter than his eyes widened slightly. "Oh, I think I feel it now. There's a kind of energy signature in these weapons, like they're partially alive somehow. That's pretty amazing technology." He set the bolter down carefully, showing respect for the artifact. "Look, I can see you guys are dedicated warriors, and I respect that. But this fighting isn't solving anything. Can we start over? I'm Goku. I'm lost, and I need to get home. Maybe you can help me, and I can help you with whatever war you're fighting." Captain Eamon's response was cut short as the sky darkened unnaturally. Not the calculated shadow of an imperial bombardment, but a writhing living darkness that spread across the heavens like spilled ink. Green lightning crackled within the clouds, illuminating shapes that should not exist in real space. Warp breach. Cassius gasped, struggling to his feet. Massive demonic incursion imminent. The anomaly's presence has weakened the veil. Goku looked skyward, his expression shifting to one of weariness. Something's coming through those clouds. Something powerful, but it feels wrong, twisted somehow. The darkness parted, revealing a massive figure that descended to the battlefield with ponderous grace. 14F tall, bloated with corruption. Its rotting form housed cancerous vitality that mocked the concept of death. Nurgle's chosen champion had arrived, drawn to Mordian Prime by the unprecedented energy signature of the Scion warrior. "I am Mortarion," Daemon Primarch announced, his voice a symphony of disease and decay that caused mortal flesh to erupt in weeping sores. "Son of Nurgle, Lord of the Death Guard, and you, little anomaly, have caught the attention of powers you cannot comprehend." Flies swarmed around the corrupted Primarch, each one a tiny vector of plagues that could depopulate worlds. His massive scythe silence dragged furrows in reality itself as he approached, while noxious gases billowed from vents in his ancient Terminator armor. Goku stood his ground, unimpressed by the theatrical entrance. "You feel different from these other guys," he observed, nodding toward the unconscious Ultramarines. "Stronger, but also wrong, like something's eating you from the inside out." Mortarion's laughter sent guardsmen in hiding, clutching at their throats as their lungs filled with fluid. Perceptive for a mortal. The gifts of Grandfather Nurgle sustain me, elevate me beyond the weaknesses of flesh. Soon you will understand these gifts yourself, for he has taken a special interest in your arrival." "Not interested," Goku replied flatly. "Whatever's happened to you, it's not a gift. I can sense your life force, and it's all twisted up, corrupted. You're not really alive anymore, are you?" Rush distorted Mortarian's features, already hideous beyond human comprehension. "You dare judge me, insect. I have transcended death itself. I have become eternal while the false emperor rots on his throne. You will beg for Nurgle's embrace before I am finished with you." With terrifying speed that belied his massive form, Mortarion swung silence in a horizontal arc meant to bisect Goku at the waist. The San leapt over the blade but found himself engulfed in a cloud of plague spores that poured from the Daemon Primarch's armor. Even Space Marines with their enhanced physiology would have been reduced to liquefied remains within seconds of exposure. Goku coughed once, his body processing and rejecting the supernatural toxins through sheer force of ki manipulation. "That was nasty," he said, genuine disgust in his voice as he landed several meters away. "Fighting dirty with poison isn't very honorable." "Honor?" Mortarion spat the word like a curse. "Honor is the delusion of the weak, a comfort they invent to justify their inevitable failure. There is only survival and domination." "Where I come from," Goku replied, his voice hardening. "Even the worst villains understood honor. They wanted to prove their strength by beating their opponents at their best, not by tricks and poison." Golden light fled around him once more as he ascended to Super Saiyan, but this time there was determination rather than reluctance in his transformation. "I can tell talking won't work with you. You're too far gone. So let me show you what real strength looks like. Strength that comes from protecting others instead of serving your own corrupted desires." Mortarion raised his hand, summoning a swarm of Nurgle demons that materialized from the warp-tainted air. Plague-bearers, Nurglings, and beasts of Nurgle formed a putrid army around their master, their very presence causing vegetation to rot and metal to corrode. "Destroy him," the Daemon Primarch commanded. "Let his suffering nourish the garden of Nurgle." The demons surged forward in a wave of rotting flesh and infectious purpose, but found themselves facing an opponent unlike any they had encountered in 10,000 years of warfare. Goku moved through their ranks like a golden comet, each blow banishing demons back to the warp in explosions of purifying energy. His ki, refined through decades of training and countless battles, proved anathema to the warp entities. Where they touched him, their corrupting influence found no purchase, burned away by the pure life energy that suffused every cell of his being. "Interesting," Mortarion observed, watching his lesser minions fall by the dozens with each passing second. "Your energy is not psychic in nature, not drawn from the warp, yet it affects its denizens nonetheless. Perhaps you will make a more interesting specimen than I first thought." Goku finished the last plague-bearer with a ki-enhanced punch that reduced it to dissipating warp energy, then turned to face the Daemon Primarch directly. "I'm not a specimen, and I'm done holding back against you." The ground cratered beneath his feet as he launched himself at Mortarion, moving faster than even the demonic being could track. His fist connected with the corrupted armor, and for the first time in millennia, Mortarion felt genuine pain as ceramite cracked and warp-forged protection buckled. The Daemon Primarch retaliated with silence, the weapon howling as it cut through reality itself. Goku narrowly avoided its edge, feeling the chill of true death, even through his Kiora. Not just physical death, but something deeper, a severing of the soul that even the Dragon Balls might not be able to restore. "Careful," he muttered to himself, reassessing the threat. "That scythe isn't a normal weapon. It doesn't just cut the body." "Nothing escapes silence forever," Mortarion rasped, pressing his advantage with surprising speed. "All things must wither and decay. It is the only universal truth." Goku weaved through the Primarch's attacks, studying the pattern, looking for openings. Despite his corruption, Mortarion fought with the skill of a being who had waged war for 10,000 years. Each movement economical and purposeful despite his rotting form. "You're good," Goku acknowledged, blocking a blow with a ki-reinforced forearm that sent shockwaves across the battlefield. "But you're fighting for the wrong reasons. You've given up on life, on improvement. You've accepted corruption as strength when it's really just surrender." "Philosophical debates are pointless," Mortarion growled, summoning sickly green warp fire that encircled them both. "Let your body argue with silence, and we shall see whose philosophy prevails. The demonic fire closed in, forcing Goku to expend energy on maintaining his protective aura. Meanwhile, Mortarion pressed his physical attack, silence sweeping in endless deadly arcs, while plague spores filled the air in choking density. Goku found himself on the defensive for the first time, the multi-layered attack taxing even his incredible abilities. The warp energy behaved unpredictably, not following the physical laws he was accustomed to, while silence seemed to anticipate his movements, adjusting its trajectory in mid-swing to seek his soul. A grazing hit from the scythe opened a shallow cut on his forearm, and Goku felt a coldness spreading from the wound that his ki struggled to counter. "This isn't good," he muttered, putting distance between himself and the Daemon Primarch with a backward leap. "That weapon is trying to infect my life force directly." Mortarion laughed, the sound causing nearby corpses to sit upright, animated by his necromantic power. "Do you feel it, anomaly? The first kiss of Nergal's blessing. Soon you will understand the liberation of surrender, the peace that comes with accepting decay as your master." Goku looked at the spreading discoloration around his wound, focusing his ki to combat the supernatural infection. "I fought enemies who tried to absorb me, possess me, and change me," he said, golden aura flaring brighter as he channeled more energy. "They all failed. Your blessing is no different." With a shout of effort, he purged the corruption from his system, the warp-tainted cells burning away as his ki reasserted control over his body. The effort cost him, however, leaving him momentarily drained as Mortarion pressed his attack once more. "Impressive, but futile," the Daemon Primarch intoned. "Your energy is finite. My master's blessings are eternal. This is a battle of attrition you cannot win." The words carried weight, for Goku recognized their truth. In this strange universe, separated from the familiar energy patterns of his home reality, his ki regenerated more slowly than normal. Each technique, each transformation drained him more heavily than it should, while his opponent seemed tireless, fueled by the endless corruption of whatever dark god he served. "You might be right about that," Goku admitted, dodging another sweep of silence. "So I guess I need to end this quickly instead of dragging it out." His aura shifted, electricity crackling around the golden flames as he pushed beyond the first level of Super Saiyan. The transformation to Super Saiyan 2 sent a shockwave across the battlefield, powerful enough to shatter the remaining glass in the ruined hab blocks for miles around. Even Mortarion paused, sensing the exponential increase in his opponent's power. "Interesting," the Daemon Primarch mused. "Your species has hidden depths. Grandfather will be most pleased when I deliver you to his garden." "That's not going to happen," Goku replied, his voice echoing with newfound power. "This ends now." He vanished, reappearing behind Mortarion with his hands cuped at his side. Blue energy gathered between his palms, coalescing into a sphere of such intensity that reality itself seemed to bend around it. "K, me, hey, me." The ancient words built power with each syllable, the energy sphere growing, concentrated ki ready to be unleashed. Huh. The beam erupted forth, a column of blue-white energy wider than a rhino transport that engulfed Mortarion completely. The Daemon Primarch raised silence to block, but the weapon's warp-forged metal began to crack under the pressure of pure life energy, focused to a destructive point. For the first time in millennia, doubt flickered across Mortarion's corrupted features as he felt his demonic form beginning to lose cohesion under the assault. The Kamehameha wave contained no psychic component for his war-ruined defenses to counter, no corruption for Nergal's gifts to absorb and twist. It was simply raw power refined through discipline and focused through will, the antithesis of the surrender to entropy that defined his existence. With a sound like reality tearing, silence shattered, its fragments dissolving into warp energy as the Kamehameha wave engulfed Mortarion completely. The Daemon Primarch's physical form disintegrated molecule by molecule, banished back to the warp in a display of power that would enter Imperial legend. The beam continued skyward, piercing the unnatural storm clouds and dispersing them with its passage. For a moment, sunlight broke through the perpetual gloom of Mordian Prime, casting golden light across a landscape that had known only shadow for generations. Goku lowered his hands, breathing heavily as he powered down from Super Saiyan 2. The exertion in this strange reality had cost him more than expected, depleting his ki reserves to dangerous levels. He dropped to one knee, steadying himself as the after-effects of the massive energy expenditure rippled through his body. "That took more out of me than it should have," he murmured, looking at his trembling hands. "This place is affecting my energy somehow." A slow clapping sound drew his attention. Captain Eamon stood where he had left him, the ultramarine's face hidden behind his helmet, but his posture conveying grudging respect. "Whatever you are," the Space Marine said, "you have just banished a demon Primarch. That alone stays your execution for now." Goku managed a tired smile. "Does that mean we can talk without fighting? It means the Inquisition will want to interrogate you personally rather than having you eliminated by lesser authorities." Eamon gestured to the east, where drop pods were already piercing the atmosphere. "The Grey Knights come. Even I lack the clearance to know all they may do." Before Goku could respond, the ground began to shake with rhythmic impacts. Over the horizon came a tide of green-skinned creatures more numerous than the eye could count. At their head strode a massive specimen, easily 12F tall, clad in crude armor festooned with trophies, and wielding an axe larger than a mortal man. War. The battle cry rose from thousands of throats, shaking the very air with its psychic resonance. The biggest fight comes, green is best. Arjun Man turned to the new threat. Stormbolter raised despite the hopelessness of their position. "Orcs," he spat, "and that appears to be Warboss Grimtu himself. We cannot survive this, not with my company incapacitated." Goku rose to his feet, ignoring the protest of his depleted body. "Those green guys look excited about something. They are orcs, alien savages who live only for war," Eamon explained tersely. "And it appears your display of power has drawn their attention. They are psychically attuned to seek out the greatest battles, the strongest opponents. You have just made yourself the prime target for every orc in the sector." The massive warboss halted his advance 100 meters from their position, beady red eyes fixed on Goku with predatory intelligence. "You," he bellowed, pointing a massive power claw. "DA1 who made the big flash. You going to give Grim to the best fight ever, or you going to die? Try." Goku stretched, working out the kinks in his battle-worn muscles. "He seems enthusiastic at least. Are these orcs as bad as that rotting guy I just fought?" "Different," Eamon replied. "Orcs have no interest in corruption or domination for its own sake. They seek only battle. The bigger and more destructive the better. They are a force of nature, an evolutionary dead end that exists solely to fight." A smile spread across Goku's face, genuine and eager despite his exhaustion. "So, they just want a good fight. Nothing sneaky. No poison or soul-stealing weapons, just strength against strength." "Essentially," Agam Man confirmed, wondering at the strange being's reaction, though their numbers make any such confrontation suicidal for most opponents. "Perfect," Goku said, his fatigue seemingly forgotten as he walked forward to meet the orc challenge. "That I understand." The warboss raised his crude power weapon as Goku approached. "Use a puny one," Grim2 observed. But Grim2 felt the power in ya. "Show me. Give Dwag a proper fight." Goku stopped 20 paces from the massive orc, looking up at the creature that towered over him. "You want to see my power? All right, but I'm warning you. I'm pretty strong." Golden light flared around him once more as he transformed into a Super Saiyan, his depleted ki reserves protesting but responding to his indomitable will. The orcs roared their approval, the WAGH energy that suffused their species, resonating with the display of power in a way that made the air itself vibrate with anticipation. "That's more like it," Grim2 bellowed, raising his axe high. "Now, where's going to see who's the strongest? Green or yellow?" the warboss charged, his massive form moving with surprising speed for something so large. Goku met the charge head-on, his golden aura flaring as he caught the descending axe on his forearm, the power field around the crude weapon sparking against his ki barrier. The impact sent shockwaves across the battlefield, toppling ruins and kicking up a dust cloud that obscured both combatants momentarily. When it cleared, they were locked in a contest of strength, the orc pressing down with his axe while Goku held it at bay, muscles straining but expression exhilarated. "You're strong," he acknowledged, genuine respect in his voice. "Stronger than you look. Oxy's made for fighting and winning," Grim2 replied, putting his massive weight behind the axe. "And Grim2 is Dar's strongest orc." Goku's smile widened. "Let's test that theory." With a surge of power, he pushed back, sending the warboss staggering. Before Grim2 could recover, Goku was inside his guard, landing a series of punches to the orc's torso that would have pulverized concrete. The warboss absorbed the blows, his tough hide and redundant organs minimizing the damage, while he countered with a sweeping backhand that Goku narrowly avoided. The Orc WH erupted in cheers and bellows, their collective psychic energy feeding Grimtoo's already prodigious strength. The war boss grew visibly larger as the fight continued, his muscles swelling with each exchange of blows, his speed increasing to match Goku's movements. Dream grows stronger in death. Grimtoo roared, landing a glancing blow that sent Goku tumbling despite his guard. "Use can't win, Yellow Man." Picking himself up, Goku wiped blood from his lip, his expression more excited than concerned. "You get stronger as the fight goes on. That's amazing. Where I come from, Saiyans do the same thing. The tougher the battle, the more powerful we become. Dend is going to be the best fight ever," Grimtoo declared, charging again with renewed vigor. Their battle escalated, each combatant pushing the other to new heights. Goku found himself genuinely challenged not just by Grimtoo's raw strength, but by the unpredictable nature of the Orc's fighting style, a brutal efficiency born of countless battles that defied conventional analysis. Meanwhile, the Orc war boss discovered an opponent unlike any he had faced, one who met his escalating power with equal increases, who seemed to enjoy the pure challenge of combat as much as any Orc. Captain Aemon watched in disbelief as the duel continued, neither combatant gaining a decisive advantage. The Orc wag had formed a crude arena around the fight, their bloodlust momentarily satisfied by witnessing such an epic confrontation. Even the approaching Grey Knights slowed their advance, observing the phenomenon with rare uncertainty. Hours passed, the landscape around them reduced to rubble by the shockwaves of their clashing power. Both Goku and Grimtoo were bloodied but unbowed, their respective abilities to heal and adapt keeping them in the fight long past when normal combatants would have collapsed. "You're amazing," Goku acknowledged, breathing heavily as they separated after another furious exchange. "I haven't had a fight like this in a long time, but I think it's time to end it." Grimtoo agrees. The war boss rumbled, now nearly twice his original size from the prolonged battle. One last big hit. Winner take us all. Both fighters gathered their remaining strength, Goku's aura flaring with renewed intensity while Grimtoo's crude weapons glowed with the green energy of the WA. They charged simultaneously, meeting in the center of their makeshift arena with a collision that cracked the earth beneath them and sent seismic tremors across the continent. When the dust settled, Goku stood victorious, the unconscious form of a warboss Grimtoo lying in a crater at his feet. The Saiyan warrior was barely standing himself, his golden aura flickering like a dying flame as his depleted ki struggled to maintain the Super Saiyan transformation. With a final pulse of light, the aura vanished, leaving Goku in his base form swaying slightly from exhaustion. The Orc WAGH fell silent, tens of thousands of red eyes fixed on the being who had defeated their mightiest leader in single combat. According to their brutal meritocracy, this meant only one thing: new boss. The cry came from somewhere in the Green Horde, quickly taken up by thousands of voices until it became a deafening chant that shook the ruins. New boss, strongest leads. Goku looked up in confusion as the Orcs began to prostrate themselves, pressing their foreheads to the ground in crude obeisance. Wait, what? I don't want to be your boss. I just wanted a good fight. A particularly large Orc sporting a crude mechanical arm and wearing what appeared to be the remnants of an Imperial officer's uniform approached cautiously. You beat the war boss fair and square, he explained as if talking to a particularly dim child. That makes you do war boss. That's how Orcs work. Strongest leads all our time. But I'm not an Orc, Goku protested, gesturing to his distinctly unorthish appearance. The large Orc scratched his head with his mechanical claw, considering this objection. That's a bit tricky, he admitted. Never had a pink war boss before, but you's got double fire stuff and you's beat Grimtoff, so rules is rules. Before Goku could argue further, the sky split open once more. Not a warp breach this time, but a calculated teleportation matrix deployed by the approaching Grey Knights. Silver-armoured figures materialized in a perfect circle around Goku, each bearing a halberd inscribed with runes that hurt the eyes to look upon. Anomaly, inoned the leader, his voice resonating with psychic overtones that commanded absolute attention. I am just a thorn of the Grey Knights. By the authority of the Emperor's Holy Inquisition, you will submit to examination. The Orc WR bristled at the interruption, hands moving to crude weapons as they prepared to defend their newly appointed leader. Goku, sensing the imminent bloodbath, raised his hand to forestall violence. Hold on, he said to both sides. Nobody needs to fight right now. I've had enough fighting for one day. The Xenos infestation must be purged, Thorn stated, as if reciting an irrefutable law of physics. Once you are secured, the cleansing will commence. Goku frowned, looking at the thousands of orcs who moments ago had been ready to tear him apart, but now looked to him with something approaching devotion. These guys just want good battles against worthy opponents. That's not so different from me, really. Heresy, Thorn hissed, his halberd rising slightly. The alien cannot be bargained with, cannot be reasoned with. It exists only to corrupt and destroy humanity. I've heard that kind of thinking before, Goku replied, his voice hardening despite his exhaustion. It never leads anywhere good, judged by actions, not by what someone is. The standoff intensified, Grey Knights and Orcs alike tensing for the inevitable clash. Captain Aemon, who had observed the entire confrontation from a distance, stepped forward unexpectedly. Justica Thorn, he addressed the Grey Knight leader. What we have witnessed here defies standard classification. The anomaly banished Mortarion, not defeated, not driven back, but banished a Daemon Primarch from the material plane entirely. Such an act has not been achieved since the Emperor walked among us. All the more reason to contain the anomaly, Thorn countered, though there was a new uncertainty in his tone. Such power cannot be allowed to roam unchecked. Goku straightened, finding reserves of strength through sheer force of will. I'm not looking to cause trouble. I just want to find a way home. But I won't let you hurt these orcs just because they're different from you. If they attack innocent people, that's one thing, but right now they're just standing here. Darn Boss speaks true. The large orc with the mechanical arm declared, We follows Dar strongest. If Danu Boss says no fighting, then we waits for now. Justicar Thorn's helmet turned toward the orc spokesman, then back to Goku. You command the loyalty of the green-skinned horde? Impossible. Not command, Goku corrected. They respect strength. That's something I understand. Instead of trying to wipe them out, why not point them at enemies you both share? That rotting guy I fought seemed like he was bad news for everyone. A communication chime sounded within Thorn's helmet. The Grey Knight stood motionless for several seconds, then lowered his halberd fractionally. We have received new instructions from Terra. The anomaly is to be escorted to the Inquisitorial Fortress on Macragge for consultation with Lord Guilliman himself. Murmurs ran through the gathered Space Marines at the mention of the Primarch. Even Aemon seemed taken back by the development. The Lord of Ultramar wishes to meet this being personally. So it appears, Thorn confirmed, his voice betraying nothing of his own thoughts on the matter. The incident has drawn attention at the highest levels of Imperial authority. Goku looked between the armoured warriors, sensing the significance of the name, though it meant nothing to him personally. Who's Guilliman? The last loyal son of the Emperor, Aemon explained, all evident in his voice. Despite his disciplined Astartes demeanour, a demigod reborn to lead humanity in its darkest hour. If he wishes to speak with you, then your arrival carries significance beyond our comprehension. Goku considered this, then nodded. All right, I'll go meet this Guilliman person. Maybe he can help me figure out how to get home. He turned to the orc horde, who watched expectantly for his next command. As for you guys, we waits for DeBoss to return. The mechanical armed orc declared preemptively, Keep our territory. Get ready for when you come back with new enemies to fight. No attacking innocent people, Goku insisted. Fight other warriors who want to fight, not civilians. The orc seemed to struggle with this concept, but eventually nodded. Civilians don't make good fights anyway. Too squishy, over too quick, no fun. Justica Thorn raised his hand and a teleportation beacon materialized beside him. The anomaly will accompany us now. The Xenos will be dealt with once we depart. That wasn't the deal, Goku said firmly, crossing his arms. These orcs aren't attacking anyone right now. Leave them be, and I'll come with you peacefully. Try to hurt them after I leave, and I promise I'll know about it. The Grey Knight's helmet revealed nothing of his expression, but the tension in his posture spoke volumes. After a long moment he gave a curt nod. Temporary suspension of the purge is authorized. The larger strategic concern takes precedence. With that settled, Goku walked toward the teleportation beacon, each step measured as he conserved his remaining strength. Before touching the device, he looked back at the massive orc horde and their unconscious former leader. When he wakes up, Goku said, gesturing to Grimtu, tell him it was a good fight. Maybe we can have a rematch someday when I'm stronger. The large orc with the mechanical arm thumped his chest in salute. We tells him, and we get stronger too for when use comes back. With a final nod, Goku placed his hand on the teleportation beacon. Light engulfed him, and the war-torn fields of Mordian Prime vanished from view. He rematerialized aboard a vessel of such immense proportions that his first thought was that it must be a floating city rather than a spacecraft. The teleportation chamber alone could have housed several Capsule Corporation buildings with room to spare. The anomaly is secured. Justikar Thon reported to a figure who waited at the chamber's edge. As ordered, Inquisitor, the individual who stepped forward, bore little resemblance to the armoured warriors who surrounded Goku. Clad in simple black robes, the only indication of authority was a small icon that hung around her neck, depicting a stylized letter I that seemed to watch the observer in return. "I am Inquisitor Vale," she introduced herself, studying Goku with analytical intensity. "You have caused quite the stir in the Imperium, Mr. Sun." "Goku," he replied with characteristic directness. "But just Goku is fine." "Very well, Goku," Vale continued, gesturing for him to follow as she turned toward the chamber's exit. "You're now aboard the inquisitorial black ship Tenebrous Vinculum. We will transport you to Macrage, where Lord Gilman awaits. The journey will take approximately 3 standard weeks in the warp." 3 weeks? Goku frowned. "That's a long time. Is there any way I could get something to eat first? That fight took a lot out of me." A fleeting smile crossed Vale's austere features. "I have been informed of your martial prowess. Appropriate sustenance has been arranged. This way, please." She led him through corridors of such massive scale that even Goku, no stranger to impressive architecture, found himself looking up in wonder. Servitors and crew members stopped to stare as he passed, whispers following in his wake. The chamber they eventually entered contained a table laden with food in quantities that would have fed a platoon. Goku's eyes widened at the sight, his San appetite asserting itself immediately. "This is great," he exclaimed, taking a seat without waiting for invitation. "Mind if I dig in?" "Please do," Vale replied, seating herself across from him with a data slate in hand. "While you eat, perhaps you could satisfy my curiosity about your origins." Between mouthfuls of food that disappeared at an alarming rate, Goku explained his situation as best he understood it himself. He told her of Earth, of the Dragon Balls, of his Saiyan heritage, and his many battles to protect his adopted homeworld. He described the strange energy fluctuation that had occurred during his training session with Whis, and the sensation of being pulled through dimensions before arriving on Mordian Prime. Vale listened in silence, her expression betraying nothing of her thoughts as she occasionally made notations on her data slate. Only when Goku mentioned the divine beings of his universe, the gods of destruction, and the angels who served them, did she show a flicker of increased interest. "These beings," she said when he paused to consume another platter of food, "these gods and angels, they oversee reality itself in your universe." Goku nodded, swallowing a mouthful. "Yeah, each universe has a god of destruction to keep balance. Beerus is ours. He's incredibly strong, way stronger than me, though I'm getting closer to his level with each training session. And these Dragon Balls you mentioned," Vale continued, "artifacts that can grant any wish, even resurrect the dead." "Pretty much," Goku confirmed, reaching for a pitcher of water. "Though there are limits. They can't restore someone who died of natural causes, and they can't bring back anyone who's been dead for more than a year, unless you use the Super Dragon Balls, which are way more powerful." Vale set down her data slate, her full attention now on the Scion. In this Imperium Goku, such concepts are not merely foreign, they are heretical. The Emperor is humanity's only god, and resurrection is a power attributed only to him. What you describe would be seen by most Imperial authorities as the rankest form of chaos worship. Goku paused in his eating, sensing the sudden gravity in her tone. "I'm just telling you how things work where I'm from. I'm not trying to challenge anyone's beliefs here." "I understand that," Vale assured him, "which is why we're having this conversation in private rather than in an inquisitorial interrogation chamber. Lord Gilman has specifically ordered that you be treated as an honoured guest rather than a prisoner or heretic, at least until he can assess you personally." "That's good," Goku said with genuine relief. "I've had enough fighting for now. I just want to understand this place and figure out how to get home. That may prove challenging." Vale observed, "The barriers between realities are not easily breached, even with the most advanced Imperial technology. If you truly come from another universe entirely, as your story suggests, the complexity increases exponentially." Goku's expression turned thoughtful as he set down his eating utensils. "Back home, I can use a technique called instant transmission to teleport anywhere I can sense a key signature. But here, The energy feels different, distorted somehow. And there's this other energy that seems to flow through everything, something dark and twisted that I've never felt before. You speak of the warp, Vale explained, the immaterium that underlies reality itself. It is the source of psychic power, the realm where emotions take form and demons dwell. It is also how we travel between stars, though such journeys are fraught with peril. Goku nodded slowly. That explains a lot. When I fought that Mortarian guy, his energy felt wrong, corrupted, like it was eating him from inside while pretending to make him stronger. An apt description of chaos. Vale agreed. The ruinous powers offer gifts that seem like strength, but ultimately consume their bearers. That you could perceive this corruption speaks well of your spiritual purity, which may be why Lord Gilliman has taken such interest in your arrival. The 3 weeks of warp travel passed in a routine that Goku established for himself. With his key reserves slowly replenishing in this strange reality, he devoted himself to training within the vast empty chambers of the Black Ship. The crew and inquisitorial acolytes watched in fascination as he performed feats of strength and speed that defied human limitation, practicing kata and energy techniques that had been perfected over a lifetime of battle. Inquisitor Vale visited daily, their conversations ranging from the metaphysical nature of ki versus psychic energy to the political realities of the Imperium of Man. Goku listened more than he spoke during these sessions, absorbing information about this grim universe with its endless wars and existential threats. "Your Imperium reminds me a bit of Frieza's Empire," he observed one day, referring to an old enemy. All this emphasis on control and purity, destroying anything different. It didn't work out well for him in the end. A dangerous comparison, Vale cautioned, though without rancour. The Imperium may be brutal by the standards of your reality, but it is all that stands between humanity and extinction in ours. The threats we face leave little room for tolerance or mercy. Maybe, Goku conceded, but I found that making allies is usually better than making enemies. Those orcs back on that planet could be fighting your real enemies instead of you if you gave them the chance. An unorthodox perspective, Vale noted. One that Lord Gilman might find interesting given his current reconsideration of certain Imperial doctrines. When they finally emerged from the warp, the world of Macragge filled the viewing ports with its blue-white majesty. Unlike the war-ravaged Mordian Prime, this planet radiated order and strength, its continents shaped by deliberate design rather than natural chaos. The fortress of Hera dominated the northern hemisphere, a citadel of such vast proportions that it was visible from orbit. It was here, in the heart of Ultramar, that the last loyal Primarch had established his headquarters since his miraculous resurrection. The descent to the surface passed in tense silence, Goku sensing the weight of expectation from everyone aboard. Whatever this Gilman was, his mere name commanded a reverence that reminded the Sen of how people reacted to the gods of destruction in his own universe. The landing bay where they docked could have housed entire fleets of normal aircraft. Blue-armoured ultramarines stood in perfect formation, creating an honour guard that stretched from the ship's ramp to the massive adamantium doors that led deeper into the fortress. At their head stood Captain Aemon, somehow having arrived before them despite departing Mordian Prime after their teleportation. "Inquisitor Vale," Aemon acknowledged with a formal bow. "The Lord of Ultramar awaits the anomaly in the Primus Strategium. His name is Goku," Vale corrected mildly, "and Lord Gilman has ordered that he be treated as an honoured guest." Aemon's expression remained neutral, though Goku sensed his skepticism as the Primarch commands. "This way, please." The journey through the fortress of Hera became a procession with more observers joining with each passing corridor. Space Marines of different chapters, high-ranking Imperial officials, even hooded representatives of the Mechanicus turned to watch as Goku passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Finally, they reached a set of doors so massive that even Titans might have used them as a primary entrance. Inscribed with the history of Ultramar in gold relief, they swung open silently despite their tremendous weight, revealing the chamber beyond. The Primus Strategium was a cathedral to war. Holithic displays showed conflict across 100 worlds, while servitors and officers moved between tactical stations with practiced precision. At the centre stood a figure that dominated the space, not merely through physical stature, though he towered over all present, but through sheer presence. Rabut Gilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines and Lord Commander of the Imperium, turned as they entered. 9 F tall in his magnificent artificer armor, with features that resembled classical sculpture given life, he radiated an aura of authority that Goku had rarely encountered. "So," the Primarch said, his voice resonant yet precise, "this is the being who banished Mortarion." Golden Eyes studied Goku with penetrating intelligence. He seems rather unassuming for such a feat. Goku met the Primarch's gaze directly, neither intimidated nor overly impressed. "You'd be surprised how often people tell me that right before a fight." A murmur of shock ran through the assembled officials at such casual address to the Imperial Regent, but Gilman's expression showed only thoughtful interest. "Indeed," the Primarch replied, "appearances are seldom reliable indicators of capability. Come, let us speak more privately." He gestured toward a side chamber, dismissing the gathered officials with a subtle motion. Only Inquisitor Vale remained, following at a respectful distance as Gilman led Goku to a space that, while still massive by human standards, offered a modicum of privacy. "I have reviewed the reports from Morian Prime." Gilliman began once they were seated, the Primarch in a reinforced throne that accommodated his massive frame, Goku in a chair that would have suited a high-ranking Imperial official. "Your arrival has created quite the disruption in the Imperium's carefully ordered systems." "Sorry about that," Goku replied with genuine contrition. "I didn't exactly plan to come here." "No, I suspect not," Gilliman agreed. "Inquisitor Vale informs me that you claim origin from another universe entirely, one with rather different metaphysical underpinnings than our own." "That's right," Goku confirmed. "Where I come from, we don't have this warp energy that's everywhere here. We have ki, life energy that flows through all living things." "Fascinating," the Primarch mused. "And this ki allows you to perform feats that in our reality would require psychic manipulation of the warp." "I guess so," Goku said with a shrug. "Though my techniques work differently, your psychic powers seem connected to emotions and willpower. Ki is more about harmony between mind, body and spirit." Gilliman leaned forward slightly, his interest clearly piqued, and this energy proved anathema to Mortarion's demonic form. It banished a Daemon Primarch when even our most potent anti-warp weapons often merely drive such entities back temporarily. "It seemed to burn away the corruption in him," Goku explained, recalling the battle, "like his form couldn't stay together when faced with pure life energy." "Remarkable." Gilman sat back, his expression contemplative. "If this could be replicated or even studied—" "Lord Gilman," Vale interjected respectfully, "while the martial applications are certainly of interest, there is another aspect to consider. Our guest claims to come from a reality where resurrections are commonplace through the use of artifacts called Dragon Balls." The Primarch's eyes narrowed fractionally. Resurrection, true restoration of life, not the twisted mockeries offered by chaos or the mechanical half-life of a dreadnought. Complete restoration. Goku confirmed. Body and soul good as new. The Dragon Balls can grant almost any wish, but they're most often used to bring back people who died before their time. A tense silence followed this revelation, broken only by the distant sounds of the fortress's operations. When Gilliman spoke again, his voice had taken on a careful neutrality that barely concealed powerful emotion beneath. "In 10,000 years of Imperial history," he said, "through all our technological mastery and psychic achievement, true resurrection has remained beyond our grasp. Even my own return required the combined efforts of Archmagos and the Ilari goddess Era. And I returned to a galaxy fallen so far from what my father envisioned that at times I question whether the effort was worthwhile." Goku sensed the weight behind these words, the ancient grief that seemed to surround the Primarch like an invisible cloak in my world. He said gently, "Death isn't always the end. I've died twice myself and came back stronger each time." "To die and return," Gilliman murmured, his gaze distant. "To have a second chance, not just for oneself, but for all those lost." He refocused on Goku with sudden intensity. These Dragon Balls, could they exist in our reality? Could they be created or summoned? Goku frowned thoughtfully. "I'm not sure. They were created by Kami, who was originally a Neomekian. I don't know if your universe has Neomekians or if the same principles would work here with this warp energy complicating things, but it might be possible," Gilliman pressed, a terrible hope kindling in his golden eyes. "Maybe," Goku allowed, "though trying to make Dragon Balls here might have consequences I can't predict. The ones back home have limitations to maintain balance. Without those safeguards, such power would inevitably be corrupted." Vale interjected softly if Chaos were to gain access to wish-granting artifacts of such magnitude. The results would be catastrophic. Gilman acknowledged the brief flame of hope subsiding. Even the attempt might draw the attention of the ruinous powers. "You are wise to counsel caution, Inquisitor," he turned back to Goku. "Nevertheless, your presence here offers unique opportunities. Your energy, this key, clearly has properties that affect warp entities in ways our conventional weapons do not. If you were willing to assist the Imperium while we search for a way to return you to your reality." "You want me to fight for you?" Goku summoned, neither surprised nor offended by the proposition. "I would prefer to say fight with us," Gilman corrected. "The threats facing humanity are existential. Chaos, Tyranids, Necrons, each capable of extinguishing all human life if left unchecked. Your power could turn the tide in critical conflicts." Goku considered this seriously. "I don't mind fighting to protect innocent people. That's what I've always done. But from what I've seen and heard about your Imperium, you're not always the good guys. Some of your methods seem pretty harsh, even cruel." "The Imperium is flawed," Gilliman acknowledged with surprising candor. "Its institutions have calcified over 10 millennia, becoming in many cases the very opposite of what my father intended. I have spent every moment since my return attempting to reform what can be reformed to steer humanity back toward a more enlightened path. But 10,000 years of dogma cannot be undone in a few short decades." "So, you're trying to make things better," Goku said, studying the Primarch with new interest. "That's something I can get behind, but I won't participate in anything that targets innocent people, no matter who gives the orders." "Define innocent," Vale challenged. "Would you consider Xenos innocent? Abhumans? Psychers?" "I judge by actions, not by what someone is," Goku replied firmly. "Those orcs on Mordian Prime, they respected strength and wanted good fights, but they were willing to hold back when I asked them to. That counts for something in my book." Gilman exchanged a glance with Vale, some unspoken communication passing between them. "Your moral perspective is refreshingly straightforward." The Primarch said finally, "Perhaps there is wisdom in such clarity. Very well. I will not ask you to compromise your principles. Fight only where you deem the cause just. I can work with that." Goku agreed with a smile, "And in return, you'll help me find a way back to my universe." "The Imperium will devote significant resources to the endeavor," Gilliman confirmed. "Though I must warn you, interdimensional travel beyond the confines of the warp remains theoretical at best. It may take considerable time." "That's okay," Goku said, his natural optimism reasserting itself. "In the meantime, I can train, get stronger, and help out where it makes sense. This universe has some pretty powerful fighters I haven't faced before." "Indeed," Gilliman agreed, a ghost of a smile touching his perfect features, "though I would caution against seeking battle with certain entities purely for the challenge. The gods of chaos are not opponents to be faced for sport." "Fair enough," Goku conceded. "I've learned that lesson before with Beerus. Some fights aren't worth picking unless absolutely necessary." The conversation continued for hours, ranging from tactical considerations to metaphysical discussions of ki versus psychic energy. Gilliman proved a keen listener, absorbing Goku's explanations of his techniques and abilities with the analytical precision of the supreme strategist he was. In turn, the Primarch provided more context about the Imperium, its history, and the existential threats it faced. He spoke of the Emperor, describing a being of such power and foresight that even Goku found himself impressed, yet also troubled by the dogmatic worship that had risen around a figure who, by Gilliman's account, had explicitly rejected divinity. "Your father sounds a bit like the Kais from my universe," Goku observed. "Incredibly powerful beings who oversee the development of life, but not exactly gods in the way most people think of them." "An interesting comparison," Gilliman mused, "though I suspect my father would find even that parallel insufficient. His vision for humanity was one of self-determination, free from the yoke of any external intelligence, divine or otherwise." As their discussion concluded, Gilman rose to his full imposing height. "You will be provided quarters befitting an honoured guest of the Imperium. Inquisitor Vale will continue to serve as your liaison, and I will expect regular reports on your activities. When threats arise that may benefit from your unique abilities, you will be consulted." "Sounds good to me," Goku agreed, standing as well, "though I hope you don't mind if I keep training while I'm here. I need to understand how my ki works in this reality, especially since it seems to regenerate more slowly than back home." "By all means," the Primarch encouraged. "The Fortress of Hera contains training facilities designed for Astartes. While they may not be calibrated for your specific abilities, they should provide adequate challenges for your regimen. As they prepared to depart, Guilliman fixed Goku with a final penetrating look. One last question, if I may. In your universe, with its different gods and rules, different threats and powers, what drives you? What is the purpose that guides Son Goku? Goku considered the question seriously, his usually carefree expression sobering. I guess it's pretty simple. I want to protect the people I care about, and I want to keep getting stronger to see how far I can push myself. Not for power's sake, but because there's something amazing about finding your limits and then breaking through them. He smiled, the expression containing an innocence that seemed utterly alien in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. When I fight someone strong, someone who pushes me to my limits, is like seeing a whole new world open up, and knowing that I can use that strength to protect others, that's what makes it worthwhile. Guilliman nodded slowly. A warrior's philosophy, honest in its simplicity. There is virtue in such clarity of purpose. He extended his hand, massive even by Artie's standards. Welcome to the Imperium of Man, Son Goku. May your strength help light the way in dark times. Goku took the offered hand without hesitation, his grip matching the Primarch's own considerable strength. I'll do what I can while I'm here, and who knows, maybe our universes crossed paths for a reason. As Goku departed with Inquisitor Vale, Guilliman remained in the private chamber, his transhuman mind calculating probabilities and strategic implications. The arrival of this being from another reality represented both unprecedented opportunity and unknowable risk. The power to banish Daemon Primarchs could turn the tide against chaos. Yet, the ideological differences between Goku's worldview and Imperial doctrine threatened disruption on another front. Most concerning was the concept of the Dragon Balls. If such artifacts could truly resurrect the dead, restore what was lost. The Primarch's thoughts turned to his father, entombed for 10 millennia on the Golden Throne, neither truly alive nor dead. Could such power offer salvation where all Imperial science and sorcery had failed? A dangerous line of thought, Lord Guilliman, came a voice from the shadows, speaking the concerns he had not voiced aloud. The Primarch did not turn, having been aware of the observer's presence throughout the interview. Your assessment, Constantine. A figure in gleaming golden armour stepped forward, a guardian spear held casually in one massive hand. Custodian Shield Captain Constantine Valdor, once thought lost to history, had returned to Imperial service shortly after Guilliman's own resurrection, under circumstances the Primarch had kept deliberately obscured from wider Imperial knowledge. The anomaly speaks truth as he perceives it. Valdor stated with the certainty of one who had stood beside the Emperor himself during the Great Crusade. His power is neither psychic nor warp-derived, but something our reality has no framework to properly categorize. A useful ally, potentially, but one whose very existence challenges foundational Imperial doctrines, most of which, Guilliman noted dryly, are misinterpretations and calcified dogma, rather than my father's actual vision. Even so, Valdor countered, the ripples of his presence are already spreading. Reports from Mordian Prime indicate the Orc WA has redirected its aggression toward Death Guard holdings in the sector, citing instructions from their yellow boss to fight worthy enemies instead of civilians. Guilliman's eyebrows rose fractionally, an unexpected development and not an unwelcome one, strategically speaking. Though the theological implications of Xenos following a human's moral guidance will give the ecclesiarchy apoplexy, which may be the least of our concerns, Valdor continued. The Chaos Gods have taken notice. Our agents report increased warp activity across all sectors, where news of the anomaly's arrival has spread. Tench in particular seems most agitated by the presence of power outside its ability to corrupt or predict. Good, Guilliman said with grim satisfaction. Let them fear what they cannot understand. For 10 millennia, humanity has fought a defensive war against chaos. Perhaps this unexpected ally represents an opportunity to seize the initiative at last. A dangerous gamble, Valdor cautioned, predicated on the loyalty of a being with no ties to our Imperium, our Emperor, or even our reality. All existence is a dangerous gamble, Constantine. Guilliman replied, The question is not whether we take risks, but which risks offer sufficient reward to justify their cost. He turned to face the ancient warrior directly. Monitor him, but do not interfere unless absolutely necessary. I suspect we have only begun to understand what Son Goku is truly capable of, or what his presence here might mean for the Imperium. As night fell over the fortress of Hera, Goku stood on a balcony overlooking the ordered splendour of Macragge. In the training facilities provided, he had begun the process of adapting his techniques to the strange energy patterns of this reality. Discovering both limitations and unexpected synergies between Kei and the ambient psychic field that permeated everything, his thoughts turned to home, to friends and family who would be wondering about his disappearance. Chi-Chi would be worried sick. Gohan and Goten probably searching across dimensions with Bulma's help. Even Vegeta might be concerned in his own stubborn way. I will find a way back, he promised the alien stars above. But while I'm here, I guess I have work to do. Below, in the vast training halls of the fortress, Space Marines of the Ultramarines watched recording devices that showed Goku's training exercises from earlier that day. They studied his movements with professional fascination. These warriors, who had dedicated centuries to perfecting combat techniques, suddenly confronted with an entirely new paradigm of martial prowess. His form defies conventional analysis, observed a veteran sergeant. No wasted motion, perfect balance between offense and defense, and a power output that increases rather than diminishes as combat progresses. Heresy, muttered a chaplain, though without real conviction, or perhaps something beyond our current understanding. In the Strategium, Robert Gilman reviewed tactical projections that incorporated Goku's capabilities into Imperial defense strategies. The presence of a single warrior capable of banishing a Daemon Primarch changed calculation parameters that had remained fixed for millennia. New possibilities emerged. Offensive operations that had previously been deemed impossible suddenly entered the realm of feasibility. And in the depths of the Immaterium, in realms beyond mortal comprehension, the Chaos Gods took notice. Entities of such cosmic power rarely concern themselves with individual mortals. But the arrival of this anomaly, this being whose energy existed outside the great game they had played for eons, represented both threat and opportunity. Tench, the changer of ways, saw in Goku a random element that threatened carefully laid plans spanning millennia, yet also offered new avenues for manipulation. Nurgle, Lord of Decay, remembered the purifying fire that had banished his favoured son and burned away his carefully cultured diseases. Kei, the Blood God, sensed a warrior of unprecedented skill and strength, a potential champion whose martial prowess might be turned to bloody purpose with the right incentives. And Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, perceived a being of such pure passion for combat that it bordered on the obsessive, a potential feast of sensation if properly corrupted, as one, though divided by their eternal enmities, the ruinous powers turned their attention toward the anomaly that had entered their domain. The great game would continue, but new pieces had been added to the board, new strategies required. Dawn broke over Mirage, the ordered beauty of humanity's greatest fortress world, greeting the new day with mathematical precision. Goku rose early, as was his habit, beginning training routines that had been part of his life since childhood. In the artificial gravity chamber provided by the Mechanicus, who had been grudgingly persuaded to modify existing technology to simulate the increased gravitational conditions he described. The Saiyan warrior pushed himself to new limits. 6 months passed in this manner. Goku trained, learned more about the Imperium and its enemies, and occasionally joined Imperial forces in combat against threats deemed worthy of his intervention. He fought alongside Grey Knights against Daemon incursions, assisted Space Wolves in repelling a Tyranid splinter fleet, and even once stood with the Sisters of Battle against a Black Legion war band led by Abdon himself. The encounter ending in stalemate when both sides withdrew to reassess their strategies. Through it all, his core remained unchanged, his spirit uncorrupted by the grim, dark reality in which he found himself. Where Imperial commanders advocated exterminatus, Goku sought alternatives. Where Inquisitors demanded purges, he suggested discrimination between actual threats and those who merely appeared different. His perspective remained alien to Imperial doctrine, yet increasingly commanders found themselves considering the Goku approach when conventional strategies led only to Pyrrhic victories. On Mian Prime, the Orc W Arg, under the nominal leadership of their yellow boss, had become an unexpected buffer against chaos incursions. The Greenskins instinctively drawn to battle, Death Guard forces that attempted to establish footholds in the sector. Imperial commanders observed this phenomenon with reluctant appreciation. some even beginning to implement strategies that directed rather than simply opposed Orc expansion. The Adeptus Mechanicus studied recordings of Goku's key techniques with religious fascination, dubbing the energy spirit as Vite and declaring it a manifestation of the machine god's will, previously unknown to the Omnissiah's priesthood. Efforts to technologically replicate met with limited success, though certain breakthroughs in force field harmonics resulted from the research. It was during this period of relative stability that the pattern changed. Goku had been meditating, attempting to sense the strange energy flows of this reality more clearly when a ripple passed through the fabric of space-time. The sensation was familiar yet distorted, like hearing a loved one's voice through static. "Bulma," he murmured, rising to his feet. "Is that you trying to reach me?" The disturbance intensified, a feeling of something or someone searching across dimensions. Not the crude breach of a warp rift, but a precise scientific probing that reminded him of Bulma's methodical approach to problems. He reached out with his key, attempting to strengthen the connection to make himself more detectable to whatever was searching. The effort drained him rapidly, his energy dissipating into the hungry warp that surrounded everything in this reality. But for a brief moment, contact was established. Images flashed through his mind. Bulma at her computers, dark circles under her eyes suggesting sleepless nights. Vegeta in the gravity chamber, training with such intensity that blood flowed from reopened wounds. Gohan poring over ancient texts, seeking mystical solutions where science faltered. His family and friends united in their effort to find him. Then the connection broke, leaving Goku gasping on the floor of his chambers, sweat pouring down his face as if he had fought for hours rather than simply attempted communication. "They're looking for me," he said aloud, hope and determination warring in his voice. "They know I'm alive, just lost." He reported the experience to Inquisitor Vale, who immediately escalated the information to Gilman himself. Within hours, Goku stood before the Primarch once more, describing the momentary contact. "This represents our first concrete evidence that return to your reality may be possible," Gilliman observed, his tactical mind already calculating implications. "If your associates possess technology capable of detecting you across dimensional boundaries, perhaps collaboration might accelerate our own research." "If I could just get a message to them," Goku said eagerly. "Let them know what kind of universe I'm in. Bulma might be able to figure out a way to create a stable portal or something." "A message," Gilliman mused. "Perhaps that might be arranged. The Librarius has been studying your key energy for months now. There may be a way to amplify your next attempt at contact to create a moment of clarity sufficient for meaningful communication." Within days, preparations were complete. In a chamber deep within the fortress of Hera, surrounded by psychic wards and technological marvels loaned reluctantly by the Mechanicus, Goku sat cross-legged at the center of a complex array. Around him, a circle of librarians maintained a psychic shield, protecting the operation from warp predators attracted to such concentrated energy. "Remember," Chief Librarian Tigurius instructed, "you will have perhaps 30 seconds of coherent contact. If all goes well, prioritize essential information, coordinates, universal constants, anything that might help your associates target this specific reality from their side." Goku nodded, closing his eyes as he centered himself. "I'm ready." The ritual began, psychic energy and technology working in concert to create a momentary breach between realities. Goku reached out with his key, searching for that familiar resonance he had felt before, the unique energy signature that belonged to his home universe. For long minutes, nothing happened. The strain began to tell on the librarians, several dropping to their knees as they struggled to maintain the psychic shield against the pressure of the warp beyond. Even Tigurius, among the most powerful psychers in the Imperium, showed signs of fatigue, blood trickling from his nose as he chanted the final incantations. Then, like a radio suddenly finding the right frequency, contact was established. Goku felt the connection solidify, stronger this time, more stable. Through it, he sensed familiar key signatures, the spiritual fingerprints of those he had known all his life. "Bulma," he projected, focusing his thoughts into coherent form. "Can you hear me?" The response came not as words, but as emotional confirmation, a burst of surprise and joy that could only be Bulma realizing her equipment had succeeded. Quickly, Goku sent images and concepts trying to convey the nature of the universe where he was trapped. The warp, the Imperium, the constant state of war, all compressed into packets of pure thought and memory. In return, he received acknowledgement and something more, a complex set of mathematical formula and technological schematics that he could not hope to understand, but knew instinctively were meant for the scientists of this reality. A blueprint for a way home. The connection began to fade, the strain of cross-dimensional communication proving too much even for the combined might of Imperial psychers and technology. In the final moments before it broke completely, Goku sent one last message, a warning about the dangers of this universe, the predatory nature of the warp and its denizens, the risks of establishing a permanent connection between realities. Then it was gone, leaving him drained but triumphant on the chamber floor. It worked. He gasped, looking up at Tigurius. She understood, and she sent something back. Information about how to build some kind of dimensional gateway. The data was extracted from Goku's memory through carefully controlled psychic techniques, then turned over to the Mechanicus for analysis. The xenotechnology described was unlike anything the tech priests had encountered, operating on principles that seemed to bypass the warp entirely, creating direct bridges between quantum realities. Weeks turned to months as the Mechanicus labored to understand and reproduce the alien science. Goku continued his training and occasional interventions in Imperial conflicts, but now there was an end in sight, a concrete hope of return rather than vague possibilities. It was during this period that the Chaos Gods made their move. Having observed the anomaly for sufficient time to understand its nature, if not control it, they determined that such power could not be allowed to remain free of their influence, nor could it be permitted to escape their domain entirely. The attack came not as a conventional invasion, but as a subtle corruption of the very project meant to send Goku home. Deep within the forge world of Riser, where the dimensional gateway was being constructed, a tech priest with high-level access fell to whispers. Minor alterations to the design, seemingly inconsequential changes to material specifications, gradually transformed the gateway from a means of interdimensional travel to something far more insidious. On the day of the device's activation, Goku stood before the massive technological ring with hope in his heart. After nearly a year in the grim darkness of the 40th millennium, he would finally return to the brightness of his own reality, to the family and friends who waited for him. High Lords of Terror had gathered to witness the event along with Gilman himself, the Primarch recognizing the strategic importance of establishing friendly contact with a universe whose martial capabilities might prove valuable allies against the existential threats facing the Imperium. "The calculations are complete," announced Archmos Dominus Icarus, his mechandrites writhing with anticipation, activation sequence commencing in 3, 2, 1. Energy surged through the gateway, a whirling vortex forming at its center that resembled a warp breach, yet lacked the malevolent corruption of such tears in reality. Through it, Goku sensed something familiar, the distinctive energy pattern of his home universe. "It's working," he said, turning to Gilliman with a smile. "I can feel it. That's definitely my reality on the other side." The Primarch nodded, his expression a carefully controlled mask that betrayed none of the complex emotions beneath. Over the months, he had come to value not just Goku's martial prowess, but his perspective. So unlike the dogmatic thinking that had calcified Imperial doctrine over 10 millennia, "Then it is time for farewells," Gilliman said, extending his massive hand. "The Imperia owes you a debt, Son Goku. Know that you will be remembered in the annals of mankind's history, though those records may become distorted over time, as all legends do." Goku shook the offered hand, his grip matching the Primarch's own. "Thanks for everything. Your Imperium has a lot of problems, but it also has good people trying their best. I hope you can build something better from it eventually." As Goku turned back to the gateway, preparing to step through to home, a subtle shift occurred in the energy pattern. Only his highly attuned key senses detected it, a wrongness suddenly underlying the familiar resonance, like finding poison in a favourite meal. "Wait," he said, raising his hand in warning. "Something's not right. Too late." The gateway's energy signature transformed completely, the vortex darkening from blue-white to a sickly purple as Tien corruption manifested fully. The carefully regulated dimensional bridge collapsed, replaced by a direct connection to the crystal labyrinth of the Changer of Ways himself. Through this new breach poured entities of such mind-bending geometries that mortal observers fell to their knees, blood pouring from eyes and ears as sanity fled. lords' discs bearing blue horrors, flamers of tench casting multicoloured destruction, and at their centre an entity of such cosmic power that reality itself bent around its form. "I am Kairos Fate Weaver," announced the greater daemon, its two heads speaking in harmony for the first time in its existence. "And I bring tidings from the architect of fate. Your presence has been noted, Son Goku, and your power assessed. You shall not depart this reality, but serve as the changer's instrument in the great game to come." Gilliman reacted with transhuman speed, the Emperor's sword flaring to life in his hands as he moved to interpose himself between the demonic incursion and the gathered Imperial dignitaries. "Evacuation protocol, Omega," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos with clarion precision. "Secure the anomaly at all costs." Goku did not wait for protection. Golden light erupted around him as he transformed directly to Super Saiyan 2, his depleted ki reserves forgotten in the face of immediate threat. "You're not taking me anywhere," he declared, "facing the greater daemon without fear, and you're definitely not using me as anyone's instrument." "Your defiance is expected," Kairos replied, both heads now speaking in alternating sentences. "Your submission is inevitable. All futures converge on this point. All pasts lead to this moment. The changer of ways has calculated your variables and found the solution to your equation." The daemon raised its staff, reality warping around the arcane implement as it prepared to unleash sorcery beyond mortal comprehension. Before it could complete the casting, Goku vanished, moving faster than even demonic senses could track. He reappeared directly before Fetu Weaver, fist already in motion, enhanced by ki concentrated to its maximum density. The punch connected with the greater daemon's primary head, shattering arcane protections and sending the entity tumbling backward through its own portal. "I don't care what you've calculated," Goku said, following through the breach into the crystal labyrinth itself, leaving the material universe behind. "Where I come from, we make our own futures." Inside Sencha's realm, all laws of physics and reason broke down. Crystalline structures grew and shattered in endless recursive patterns, each fragment containing universes of possibility that lived and died in microseconds. The air, if it could be called such, tasted of forgotten knowledge and broken promises, while colours that had no names in any mortal tongue painted impossible geometries across the non-Euclidean landscape. Kairos Fetu Weaver rose from where Goku's blow had sent it sprawling, both heads now laughing in discordant harmony. "Welcome to the realm of change," the demon eined. "Few mortals enter the crystal labyrinth by choice. Fewer still retain their sanity long enough to regret the decision." Goku stood his ground, golden aura flaring against the corrupting influence that sought to invade his very being. "I've been to some pretty strange places before," he replied, dropping into a fighting stance. "The hyperbolic time chamber, Otherworld, even inside Buu. Your light show doesn't scare me." "It is not fear we seek to inspire," came a new voice, one that seemed to speak directly into Goku's mind rather than through conventional sound, but understanding. The crystal labyrinth shifted around them, rearranging itself to form a vast amphitheatre with Goku at its centre. Upon a throne of constantly shifting mathematical equations sat a figure that both was and was not there. A being of such cosmic complexity that Goku's mind could only perceive fragments of its true form. Sench, the changer of ways, architect of fate, had deigned to address the anomaly directly. "Your presence in this reality represents a variable we did not calculate." The Chaos God communicated concepts rather than words flowing into Goku's consciousness. A power outside our great game, neither of the materium nor the immaterium, but something else entirely. This intrigues us. Goku raised his guard higher, sensing the immense power before him, greater even than Beerus or Whis, though fundamentally different in nature. "I'm not interested in being anyone's science experiment," he declared. "I just want to go home." "And so you shall," Tinch replied, the promise dripping with hidden meanings and layered deceptions. "Once you have served your purpose, all things in existence serve purpose, knowingly or unknowingly, even gods." The crystal labyrinth shimmered, and suddenly Goku saw not just Sinch, but the other Chaos Gods as well, each confined to their own realm, yet connected through the great ocean of the warp. Korn upon his skull throne, Nurgle tending his garden of plagues, Slanesh lounging amidst pleasures beyond mortal comprehension, all watching this exchange with predatory interest. "You have entered the realm of gods," Sinch continued, Here we offer you what mortals have sought since first they gazed upon the stars, godhood itself. Your power, already formidable, could be expanded exponentially. Your understanding, limited by mortal perception, could encompass all knowledge across all realities. The offer rippled through the crystal labyrinth. Each fragment showing Goku a different vision of himself ascended to divine status. In one, he stood triumphant over Beerus and Whis, the gods of destruction and angels bowing before his superior might. In another, he reunited with his family, eternal and unchanging, free from the ravages of time and death. In a third, he faced opponents of such cosmic power that the battles reshaped galaxies, providing the ultimate challenge his Saiyan heart secretly craved. All I have to do is serve you, Goku surmised, seeing through the deception to the core bargain beneath. Become your weapon against your enemies. A crude simplification, Cinch replied, but essentially correct. Your service need not be eternal, merely until the great game reaches its next phase, a millennium or two, hardly significant against the backdrop of infinity. Goku closed his eyes, centering himself amidst the chaos of conflicting realities and temptations. When he opened them again, his resolve had hardened, his ki stabilizing against the corrupting influence of the warp. I've met gods before, he said simply. Good ones, bad ones, and those in between. The real ones never tried to bribe me or trick me into serving them. They earned respect through their actions, not their powers. He began to gather energy, his aura intensifying as he pushed beyond Super Saiyan 2, approaching the limits of what his body could handle in this reality. Whatever you are, you're not the kind of god I'd ever serve. You feed on suffering and corruption. You're parasites, not creators. Rage rippled through the crystal labyrinth as Tien's offers were rejected. The visions shattered, replaced by nightmarish scenes of torture and corruption, intended to break Goku's will through fear where temptation had failed. Then you shall be broken, Cinch declared, all pretense of benevolence vanishing. Your power harnessed regardless of your consent. Your essence will fuel the change's designs across 10,000 worlds. Kairos Fatu Weaver moved to restrain Goku, its staff crackling with energies capable of rewriting the target's very existence. Lesser demons materialized from the crystalline structures, thousands upon thousands surrounding the Saiyan warrior in an inescapable tide of warp entities. Goku looked at the approaching horde, then up at the ever-shifting form of Tsench itself. A smile crossed his face, not of fear or resignation, but of genuine excitement. You know, he said conversationally, where I come from, we have a technique for situations like this, when you're trapped and outnumbered, when there's no way out through conventional means. His aura began to pulse rhythmically, golden light compressing around him, drawing inward rather than expanding outward. The crystal structures nearest to him cracked under the pressure, reality itself straining as energy of an entirely foreign nature concentrated in a single point. It's called instant transmission, Goku explained, placing 2 fingers to his forehead. Normally I need to lock onto a key signature to use it, but right now I'm focusing on something different. Not a person or a place, but a concept. The compression reached its peak, Goku's form beginning to blur as the technique initiated. Tien's realm twisted around him, the chaos god extending metaphysical tendrils to prevent the escape, but finding the energy impossible to grasp or control. Home, Goku said simply. That's my anchor. Not a specific location, but the idea itself, family, friends, the place where I belong. With those words, he vanished. Not in the conventional manner of instant transmission with its characteristic pop and displacement of air, but in a more fundamental sense. It was as if Goku had never been in the crystal labyrinth at all, his existence retroactively erased from that specific point in space-time while continuing elsewhere. Sench's rage echoed across the warp, a psychic scream that caused storms and mutations across 1,000 worlds. The Chaos God had been denied its prize, its calculations proven fallible, its absolute control over its own domain challenged by a mortal-wielding power from beyond the boundaries of this universe. In the material realm, the corrupted gateway collapsed upon itself, the connection to Cinch's domain severed by Goku's departure. Gilliman and his forces had contained the demonic incursion, though at terrible cost. The Primarch stood amidst the carnage, the Emperor's sword dripping with ichor as the last of the Tien entities dissolved back into warp energy. The anomaly, he asked a nearby librarian who had been monitoring Goku's psychic signature. Gone, my lord, the psyker replied. awe and confusion mingling in his voice, not destroyed, not consumed, simply elsewhere. It is as if he found a path between universes that even the warp cannot follow. Guilliman nodded, both relieved and regretful. The alliance had been brief but productive. The Imperium had gained valuable insights from Goku's presence, new perspectives and techniques that might yet turn the tide in humanity's eternal struggle for survival. Record everything, the Primarch ordered. His techniques, his philosophy, his energy manipulation. Create training protocols based on his methods for the Librarius, and perhaps even standard estates conditioning. His physical presence may be gone, but his legacy can remain. As the cleanup began, servitors collecting data and coitators analysing the failed gateway technology. Guilliman found himself contemplating the anomaly's final words to him, spoken during their last private conversation before the activation attempt. "Your father had the right idea," Goku had said, "trying to free humanity from gods and superstition. Where I come from, we've learned that gods aren't inherently worthy of worship just because they're powerful. Some are good, some are bad, but all of them should be judged by their actions just like anyone else." Heretical thoughts by Imperial standards, yet they resonated with Guilliman's own private doubts and questions since his resurrection. The Imperium had fallen so far from the Emperor's vision, becoming in many ways the very theocratic tyranny he had sought to prevent. Perhaps there was wisdom to be found in the anomaly's perspective. After all, not a rejection of the Emperor's divinity, but a more nuanced understanding of what such divinity truly meant. Not blind worship, but reasoned loyalty based on demonstrated worth. As the days became weeks and weeks became months, stories of the Golden Warrior spread throughout the Imperium. On frontier worlds, Imperial citizens whispered of a protector who moved faster than light, whose fists could shatter demon primarchs. In Skolola Progenium facilities, instructors incorporated apocryphal tales of the Keymaster into their martial training, emphasizing the harmony of body, mind, and spirit that had made him so formidable. The Inquisition attempted to suppress such accounts, declaring them potential heresy. But the stories persisted. They offered something rare in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. Hope. Hope that even gods could be defied, that corruption could be resisted, that strength need not come at the cost of one's humanity. On Morian Prime, the Orc W continued to direct its aggression primarily against Chaos forces. The Greenskins, maintaining a crude but effective doctrine they called fighting like Dar Yellow Boss. Imperial commanders reluctantly adapted to this reality, establishing buffer zones rather than immediate extermination protocols, finding that Orc territory provided surprisingly effective insulation against warp incursions. And somewhere beyond the boundaries of the Materium and the Immaterium, beyond the reach of Chaos gods and Imperial dogma, Goku found his way home. The journey was not instantaneous nor easy, passing through dimensions and realities that defied description, but his anchor held true. The concept of home, of belonging, proved stronger than the gravitational pull of the warp, guiding him through the infinite multiverse to the universe, where ki flowed naturally and friends waited with worried hearts. His adventures in the grim darkness of the far future became memory, then story, shared with family and fellow warriors as both warning and source of new training inspiration. The power of the Chaos gods, so absolute in their own reality, served as a reminder of threats that might exist in any universe, and the need for vigilance against corruption of the body and spirit alike. In quiet moments, Goku sometimes looked to the stars, wondering about the Imperium he had left behind. Had Guilliman found a way to reform its most oppressive aspects? Had the Space Marines incorporated any of his techniques into their training? Did the Orcs still tell stories of their yellow boss and his impossible strength? Such questions had no answers. The barrier between universes once again secure, but the experience had changed him in subtle ways, lending new perspective to his eternal quest for greater strength and worthy opponents. Having glimpsed true gods, beings of such cosmic malevolence that they fed on the suffering of entire galaxies, he understood better the responsibility that came with power and the importance of using it not just for personal growth, but for protection of all that was good and worthy of preservation. The warrior's path continued as it always would. New challenges arose, new enemies threatened, new heights of power beckoned. But now that path was informed by experience from beyond the boundaries of his own reality, a brief sojourn in the grim darkness of the far future, where there was only war, yet where hope could still flourish in the most unlikely of places, and in that distant, embattled universe, the legend of the Golden Warrior lived on, a brief flicker of pure light in the endless night, a reminder that even in the darkest times, heroes could arise from the most unexpected sources, bringing with them new ways of thinking, new methods of fighting, and perhaps most precious of all, new reasons to hope.